everyone, and welcome to the Future of Business. This is episode 5, and we're talking about amplifying social impact with Web3. I'm particularly excited about today's episode because I have a new co-host. She's my colleague and my co-author for our best-selling book, Enterprise Blockchain Has Arrived. So I'd like to welcome Radhika Iyengar to the Future of Business. Welcome, Radhika. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Jordan. Great to be here with you and on the Future of Business.
Awesome. And today was a pretty exciting day because there was an amazing announcement from Governor Gavin Newsom. He signed a new executive order about Web3 for the state of California. And I know that you had something to do with that.
Yeah, thanks. A big historic day for California and for Web3. The governor signed into executive order, basically a new directive for California, spurring responsible Web3 and economic growth and consumer protection using Web3. And indeed, the efforts of myself and colleagues as a member of the California GovOps Blockchain Working Group kind of led to all of this happening today. So really exciting for this landmark moment.
Definitely a landmark achievement, like you mentioned. And as they say, as goes California, goes the rest of the world.
So we hope.
So this is a pretty exciting time for Web3, for blockchain, for the community. So today we have a very exciting topic, and we're going to be talking about different aspects of Web3 and how they can amplify, and increase social impact throughout the world. We'll have 3 different questions, and so we'll basically put out a question and then we can talk about it. So the first question is here. And so what we can see from this is, how can Web3 make the world a better place? Well, what a lot of people don't realize is Web3 is anchored by this concept of decentralization. And decentralization is a very important concept because it's based on peer-to-peer interaction. There are no intermediaries, there are no specific powerful groups that go between us and what we're trying to accomplish. So in essence, there's power symmetry, there's equal access to shared data. So Radhika, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree that this is really a game changer. I think things in real life that we only hope to imagine are things that actually can happen with a Web3 based infrastructure. If you think about financial inclusion, about the unbanked, at the time we published our book, it was about 1.7 billion people. I think it's about over 2 billion people now that are unbanked. So if you think about how do we bring on board and provide equitable access to services, to infrastructure, in a way that is inclusive, truly inclusive of global communities, this is a game changer. And beyond financial inclusion, you've got other types of inclusion. I think about ethical supply chains, for example, where you have this transparency end to end, where all of the stakeholders have equal access to the information, certain key information is shared. And therefore, there's a new consciousness that is achieved across supply chains. So the future of conscious consumerism it really has a new take on the word, or the phrase, because we can actually share and see the data for ourselves, verify the data. And we know that every step along the supply chain is secured ethically. And I think that's a really important, goal to achieve.
Definitely. And, in addition to those amazing points and awesome points that you talked about, it's really very important that there's some type of digital identity for everybody online. Right now, when we have a digital identity, it's given to us by some centralized organization, which can cut us out of that service if they choose. And we know that this is just the way of life online with Web 2.0 systems. Well, with decentralized identity, that identity comes from a utility. It's not coming from a centralized organization. And with that decentralized identity, we gain access to our own data. We control it. We can do with it what we want. We can monetize it. So it sets up a very different relationship in terms of ownership of digital assets, digital information, digital records, that gives us a lot more power than exists in the world today. And this goes hand in hand with many of the different capabilities that Radhika was talking about in terms of transparency and also fractionalization of money, so that very small amounts of money can be part of transfers with very low fees. And this leads to not only financial inclusion, but things like healthcare inclusion. So, giving healthcare access to anybody in the world, energy generation capability in a decentralized way with renewable resources that can be monetized on very small increments. And again, you know exactly who's doing it because you have decentralized identity within the Web3 ecosystem. Decentralized ID, blockchain-based systems, Web3 systems basically broaden the entire horizon in terms of who can take place, who can take part in this extended online ecosystem. Well, why don't we move on to the second question?
So let's talk about mission-driven NFTs and what this big opportunity is. Everyone has now heard about non-fungible tokens and NFTs. In fact, you've had other videocast episodes, I know, on this topic, Jordan. And we've seen the capabilities from a consumer perspective. There's a lot of entertainment value to be gained with these NFTs and ownership in new communities that are for a particular purpose that seem to be much more on the entertainment value. There's also use for business endeavors that I know you've highlighted in previous episodes. But I look at NFTs as a game changer from a mission-driven and a purpose-driven aspect. We ourselves are coming out in the next few months with a new collection that is very much on this point. But I think that if you have digital identity and ownership, and now entrance into a unique community that brings together people of shared values, shared perceptions, and shared passions. This can be about climate change. This can be about diversity, equity, inclusion. This can be about science and technology. This can be about any number of different areas where people are bound together by shared values. And I think mission-driven NFTs really help us take a new perspective on the true power of NFTs to create a better and more inclusive world.
Yeah, definitely. And here at StarChain Ventures, what we do is we spin up new capabilities, new technologies, we try them out, new companies even. And the idea is to see if these have the potential to impact the world in a more positive way. And so, like Radhika mentioned, we are wanting to show what the power is of Web3, not just talk about it, but actually, if you see Web3, it's very participatory. It's about getting everybody involved in the community, even at the level of governance, like, using decentralized autonomous organizations or DAOs. So the organization, the community, decides how it's going to use its financial resources, how it's going to use its human resources, how it's going to carry out its mission. The entire strategy and tactical execution is the decision-making process, not of a small central group of people, but of the entire community that's behind these mission-driven NFTs. So we're going to be launching over the next couple of months a number of mission-driven NFT initiatives that really show the power, and you can actually get involved as well, and we'll have more information about how that can be done. But this is a new paradigm where everyone can get included and can together create a new and better and more fair and democratized world. And we want to show how that is done. So let's move on to the third question, which really has to do with the metaverse. And it's really the question of why should the metaverse be open? So let's take a look at that. So, this concept of an open metaverse is something that, is carried out and bandied around in different discussions and in articles. But what does it really mean? So one aspect of it, it has to do with, the technical sense that you can own the assets within each community that you go to. You can, through NFTs, have ownership of the things you wear, the things that you interact with. They belong to you, just like in the real world, rather than belonging to the space or the company that has spun things up, which is kind of the experience that we have today. And it's very clear that a centralized organization can shut us out of something that we thought was ours, right? You can post pictures or thoughts, etc., and those can be shut down. Well, with regards to NFTs, these are something that we own, and our data we own. So we can go and take these to different communities, and that gives us a sense of power and capability that doesn't exist in the world today. So this is the sense of the open metaverse, but it's also that we can go into any part of the metaverse. It's what's called cross-chain, from a technical blockchain speak. And what does that mean? It means that all doors are open. We can go into these different communities, and there's no incompatibility between one and the other. And so in this new 3D world that we're going to inhabit, we are always, the door is open. Anybody can move through these different doors into these different worlds, take their things with them, take them out, and carry out their online life in a very inclusive way. But Radhika, you have some thoughts about this as well.
I do. I think the word open, you use that a lot, and I do agree with what you're saying in that context of being open. There is another sense, I think, of openness. And I think when we are taking ourselves and our avatars into the different metaverses, for example, and engaging with different communities, we want to do so openly, but we also want to be ensured that the frameworks of the metaverses that we're entering are also observing ethics and safety and privacy that we're going to be taking, and that we are a part of this. So if we want to promote positive behaviors, not take the negative behaviors in real life into the metaverse, and not exhibit the same kind of potential egregiousness that does happen in today's internet-based, Web 2-based worlds, I think this new metaverse is going to be a new sense of openness, a new sense of privacy and safety, a new sense of ethics. And a lot of those guidelines are going to be governed. You mentioned DAOs, for example. I truly believe that these community-driven DAOs that are having and setting the guidelines and the standards of behavior that is acceptable within that metaverse is going to have a huge inclusivity bump, if you will, because those of us that are combining our efforts in a metaverse and based on this shared value system that we've talked about, based on these shared passions, based on these shared motivations, can also come together in a way that is ethically sound, that is observing decent rules of behavior, if you will, that is inclusive, that is equitable to all, that is respecting one's privacy, and really not taking the problems that we've seen in today's Internet 2.0 world and bringing that into the metaverse. So great challenges, I believe, ahead, but at the same time, great opportunities for us to be taking part in a community-driven fashion, in a mission-driven fashion, to create a better world for all of us to coexist in.
Yeah, and this really dovetails very nicely with the mission-driven NFTs, because the mission-driven NFTs build this community of people that want to further a particular purpose, a particular mission. And so with that, thank you all for being part of the 5th episode of The Future of Business. We have many more episodes on the way, and a lot more guests, and Radhika will be, co-hosting as well.
Thanks, Jordan, and great to be your co-host today, and looking forward to many more exciting episodes to come.
Wonderful. So thank you, everyone. And we're looking forward to seeing you here in the future in the Future of Business. Bye.